the wall, eh? Okay, now you're talking my language.
You ever drunk Baileys from a shoe?
Oh, great. Thanks, Mother, for replacing the baby aspirin with LSD.
How much you want to make a bet I can throw a football over the mountain?
All right, welcome back to The View from C-Deck. And we're coming off another big win for the Buckeyes, another decimation of Rutgers, like it is every year. Our yearly perennial ass-whooping of that school from New Jersey, the state school of New Jersey. Had a little bit of drama at the end of the game that had nothing to do really with the outcome of the game, but it was pretty awesome with whenever two coaches get into each other's faces. But other than that, another complete performance from the Buckeye offense, I guess for the most part. Miyan Williams has a record-setting day, absolutely kills it, 5 touchdown runs, completely bowled over and smashed dude into the ground in the end zone, which was awesome to see. But overall, nothing to complain about too much, unless you're like one of those Buckeye fans that likes to complain about everything. And it could be worse. You could be a Wisconsin fan right now or a Nebraska fan and just be looking forward to a new coach. But what did you guys think? We'll start with the Haas down there. Sorry, I forgot to introduce you guys. The Haas is here today. We're a threesome, a menage a trois, if you will. Yeah. It's going to get real gay in here. So, Haas, what did you think there Saturday as we watched this Buckeye team in action?
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much wrapped it up. There was just you can't really gauge much from these games. You just want to see them go out there and compete from start to finish and just kind of take care of business, and that's what they did. There's nothing to complain about. I mean, didn't give up many mistakes, and there weren't many mental mistakes. The penalties were clean most of the game, so it was a very good, clean performance, and that's what you want to see going into these next few weeks, where the schedule starts to beef up. But that's where we're starting to look at is start to see what this team can do on the road. We've had a record 5 home games to open up the season. I kind of want to see them get tested in an environment, not like Michigan State's much of a test at the moment, but it's good to see them finally get tested here on the road.
Dyerwolf, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, just so I don't say the exact same thing you guys are saying, if I were to nitpick something, just the fielding the over-the-shoulder punts were driving me.
Book.
I'm like, all right, why is he? I don't know who can do it, because training him looked like a goofball last week. Catching punts, so I don't know, that bugged me. And then Stroud's just last week, I mean, he had 5 touchdowns, but he was a little off. And then this week it was his worst game of the year. So hopefully we got this 100 and whatever ranked pass defense that we're up against this week, so he can get back on track and throw for another 5 touchdowns hopefully.
Michigan State will cure what ails you if it's in the passing game. Yeah, he has looked a little bit off the last couple of weeks. He's airmailing throws, which he did at the beginning of last year too. So hopefully there's no more of that shoulder issues again. Oh no, I'm playing bad because my shoulder hurts. Yeah, I'm worried about that. One more worrying thing, I guess, would be that Travion Henderson was out, kind of out of nowhere. He had an injury earlier, or like 2 weeks ago, I guess. But I don't know. It kind of sounds strange, the circumstances surrounding it. I'll leave it at that for now. I'm short of calling him soft yet, but seems a little soft. The way he's ran this year has too. Miyan Williams is the complete opposite. He runs like like he wants to murder you. I'd be going for the shoestrings if I was trying to tackle him. That's about the only thing I would think they even take away from this week. Like you said, also. Jason and I were talking earlier about the red zone possession, where it seemed like Ryan Day was playing NCAA 14 and was trying to get CJ's stats up. we had like 9 plays inside the 5-yard line. He kept trying to throw it for a touchdown, and finally we had to run it in.
Yeah, on 4th down.
That's Kevin Stefanski. He must be his son, because they continually just go away from what's working and try to do something completely opposite to try to catch the defense on surprise, which there's no need to do that. I'd go back to the Stroud being off. I guess that'd be the only thing you could nitpick. There'd be 2 things. I've been harping on Denzel or on Burke all year. I mean, it was one play, but I don't think we're going to face many receivers that are going to really make him look like David Bell made us look against Purdue a couple years ago. But it is worrying to where if we do go to Michigan and they do really throw away the passes and just keep throwing them away? What can he really hold up against good competition? And then Stroud, the throwing the ball into quadruple coverage there, that was a little, what are you doing? It seems like he's making a little bit more riskier throws this year. It just seems like he's pressing it too much, and it's not worrying because like he's not really turning the ball over. He's not throwing a lot of interceptions, but it's just something that I've noticed.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Olave last year, where you're just like, you can't complain because it's really, the results are really good, but there's like seems like he's like feeling himself a little bit too much out there sometimes, where you're just like, all right, let's just focus and make the right play, the easy play, if it's there, rather than trying to like show everybody that you got the NFL throw in your toolkit, because we all know you do. Like they know already.
Yeah.
Well, this week though should be a pretty good week for him if last year was any indication. Last year against the Michigan State Spartans, who were heading up to this year, we were 49-0 at halftime, and C.J. Stroud went 32 for 35 for like 460 yards and 6 touchdowns, and it was just an absolute bloodbath. And while they've improved from like 130th against the pass, they're still 115th against the pass. They stink. They've lost 3 in a row. They're really stinking. I was listening to Day do his little presser about playing them earlier today, and he said I'm like he's gonna say they're a very good team, and of course they're good. Oh, they're a very good team. They're very good. Well coached, and just not getting the results they want. I'm like, yeah, no, they stink. And I'm gonna toot my horn on this because I can't toot it later when we do our gambling podcast at all. But I did say that Michigan State would be the biggest regression candidate in the conference this year, and they have shown that to be the truth. With people taking them a little more serious and the team not quite having the same momentum. What do you guys expect to see Saturday up there? Weather looks nice. We're 26.5 point favorites, I believe, and over under was like 64. Was that right? I did need that gambling thing.
Yeah, I think they're really. Sorry, you go ahead.
I didn't see the over under, but yeah, it reminds me of. I mean, last year were they undefeated when we played them last year. They had one loss, maybe.
One loss, yeah. Yeah,
and that was I think I mentioned it in a previous podcast when we just completely demolished them and they beat Michigan. So then I was like, I went into that last game of the year with so much confidence. But I mean, we dominated them last year, and they're not any better than they were last year, obviously. So, I mean, it's on the road. It's the first test. We might start a little slow because of that, but I see us covering relatively easily. Stroud's going to want to prove something after that ho-hum performance.
Yeah, I think to sum up Michigan State, I think they're regretting giving that Mel Tucker contract. If they just would have waited a year, they would have seen, I don't think it's all on him. I think he's got to maybe give him a couple more years to get some talent in there of his own and see what he does then to make a decision on him. But they definitely have regressed a lot to the point where they're one of the biggest disappointments in the conference after starting the year, ranked to the top 10 basically. So I expect a beat down. Start slow might be, an option, but yeah, I'm not expecting much of a fight.
Yeah, historically they've been closer games up there, but I feel like it's usually been worse weather than it's supposed to be pretty nice. Not warm. It's gonna be kind of cool up there, but
it's not mid-November when we've typically played them. Having them in the first weekend of October is definitely a game changer.
Yeah. It is worrying though that we're supposed to have Notre Dame be a big test, and it turns out they may not be very good, and Wisconsin be a big test, and turns out they are firing their coach. They're so bad, and now we got Michigan State, who was supposed to be a big test, and it's not really looking like it anymore.
Iowa.
See this team tested at some point by a team that we know is good, so we can, we want to say, especially the offenses we've played this year. Maybe this defense isn't improved as much as we think. Maybe it is. I don't know, because they're putting up great stats. They're now top 15, I think, in both points against and yardage per game, or top 16, 14th in one and 16th in another. I think, Casey.
Yeah, I wrote it down here. We're actually 7th in passing and 33rd in rushing, which is kind of surprising. It seems like a few weeks, other than Rutgers, we've played a good rushing team. But total yards were 10th and points per game were 16th.
I believe if you took away that 75-yard touchdown run by,
I was just about to say that.
We're like 20th against the run then, just that one run.
Yeah. And that was against the scrubs, the backups when they still first string in. So
it's not legitimate against our defense.
No.
And our offense is now number 1 in the country in points per game and
third,
I think. Oh, yeah.
It was kind of breaking. It was kind of breaking.
You're right. Keep going.
First in points per game, third in total yards, and then we actually flip-flop now. We're a better rushing team compared to the rest of the country than passing. After Miyan going nuts, we're 11th in the country in rushing and 18th in passing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's balanced. Go ahead, Jason.
To harp on like that point about really not facing anybody, that's like the main thing. Is I'm not worried about it, but it is going to be, when we do face that Penn State game being that's what we're, if Penn State was at home, a little bit more easy, but being Penn State on the road, that's probably going to be our first test. I mean, the 3 best teams we're probably going to play this year are Penn State, Michigan, and Maryland. I didn't think Maryland would be the 3rd best team we're going to play, but because they have the best offense that'll actually probably test our secondary, other than Michigan and Penn State. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of these Michigan State and Iowa, especially Iowa having a decent defense. I mean, I'm not worried about us beating them at all, but I am just interested to see how CJ and the running game kind of, break apart Iowa's defense to try to establish the run. That's going to be what I'm most interested about in these next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a lot of the Michigan game, Michigan and Iowa this past weekend. I think they're gettable on defense, and I think they showed Michigan was gettable on defense too. But Patriots is terrible, and I think a point of how good we are against the pass is that we've just played a bunch of real shitty passing teams for the most part.
Some of the worst. I mean, just
like Rutgers is awful awful passing the ball, and so is Notre Dame. Well, Notre Dame's had a good game, at least against North Carolina. But yeah, this is not anybody that's going to test us. And we still, I don't think, had a sack from the D-line. That was a big whiff by me, saying that JT would have a couple on Saturday. I think we had like a corner blitz from one of the freshman backups to get our only sack of the game. And Steel Chamber, we forced 2 turnovers, though, a fumble, and Steel Chambers had a pick. Linebackers were great again last week. But hopefully they can get a little more statistically done, so they can get themselves situated for some awards and some all conference teams after the season. Now, we talked to you guys earlier, though. It's been a lot of beat downs, and there's not a whole lot of new things to talk about with Ohio State. They're winning every game by 30-plus points, like they should be. But we have a lot to talk about the rest of the conference, especially the Big Ten West now with Wisconsin firing Paul Chryst, the second big domino to fall in the coaching carousel, and we're only 5 games into the season. It's pretty nuts. What do you guys think about that? What do you think? I think Jason had a good question earlier about whether or not you think Nebraska or Wisconsin is the better job for these prospective coaches. Every hot name is going to be associated with both of them now.
I mean, I think Nebraska is probably the better job at the moment. I think there's more potential there, and there's more hype, and obviously the fan base is selling out the games. I think Wisconsin definitely they've had the higher floor as of late, and they've shown what they can do in the Big Ten West. I don't understand why they fired Paul Chryst. I think this could be looked at in 10 years from now. You could look back at Wisconsin and say they made a Bo Pelini move that Nebraska made. You win 3 Big Ten West titles, and I get like you want to be in Ohio State or Michigan level, but you're in the West, which is one of the weakest divisions in all of college football. You had an easy pass to getting a Big Ten championship, and all you need is one win against Ohio State or Michigan or whoever comes out of the East, and you're possibly in the playoff. I think it was an untimely move by them. I think they should have waited, another year or two. And I mean, you saw some of the players' reactions on Twitter. I don't think any of them liked it. I think he was a good locker room guy, and I thought he was above average coach. I understand why they did it. We talked about it. If Nebraska wouldn't have fired Scott Frost, I think they're trying to get ahead of the curve and getting some coaching candidates here. But Yeah, if I'm a head coaching candidate, I'd probably look at Nebraska at first, depending on what their situation is and how the AD views you and stuff. And I'd be honest. What if is Wisconsin? You're gonna pull the rug out for me like you did Paul Christ if I have a couple good seasons and then a bad one, or because I think Nebraska has a little bit more patience when it comes to waiting on a coach.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I'd say Nebraska's the more like the better destination for a coach that's looking for a job, just because of what you just said. Wisconsin's had more success lately, but Nebraska, I mean, they kept giving Frost more and more chances, and did he ever lose a game by double digits in the past 2 years? I don't know if he did.
No, he did not.
And so he's just right there. So a good coach is going to say, I can turn this thing around,
Yes.
And I mean, they're right there is in the same boat as Wisconsin. They got to get the next level, they have to beat the Big Ten East champ, which might not happen, but I was shocked by that firing, to be honest with you. If they're going to let them play out the rest of the season, but
yes, exactly.
But apparently that's like the new thing to do.
I was surprised because I told you guys, I was like, after he lost the game, I was like, man, he may get fired this year. Because it's one of those things. It's like the quarterbacks in the NFL a lot of times where you get to a point with the Andy Daltons of the world where you're just like, man, he's fine, but you just can't, you're not going to win the next level with him. You're just not going to win championships. But a big problem for Wisconsin is they can't recruit, and they never have been able to. There's not the talent in their area. They don't have the pedigree all the way back. Like they weren't good at all until Barry Alvarez took over in like 1990. Like that was historically like the worst team in the Big Ten before then. And now that they have, or besides Northwestern, but now that they have these expectations and they want to take the next step, it's like you forget that you never have gotten the 5-star guys to come there or the high 4-star guys to come there, except for maybe a running back or an offensive lineman or two, because that's what they put out. And I also think maybe seeing Graham Mertz, who was a highly recruited quarterback, we wanted him really bad. I've said that.
He's 5 stars. Yeah. I mean, he was really good. Highly
coveted quarterback, and they still haven't developed one. He looks terrible there. If you never develop the quarterback, you got to change the system. I think it's great that but that's a risk. That's a huge risk because they're, like you said, they have a floor where they're a bowl team, at least with what they're doing, and and they can compete to make the playoff, especially once it goes to 12 teams with that system, because they're like one of the only ones that do it. So they can definitely, if you're built to stop the spread and you aren't beefy enough in the middle, they can beat your ass. But the problem is nowadays you got to be able to score in bunches, and they just don't have that offense.
I had an interesting thought. Let's see what you guys think. With these super conferences forming, possibly, we've seen the projections of like possibly just being 2 conferences or one big one. Maybe that's putting some more pressure on these programs. I mean, Nebraska and Wisconsin are going to be in this super conference, no matter however it shakes down. Do you think that maybe puts some pressure on them to say, we need to get a good coach in here because there's a lot of money on the line. You got $1 billion TV deal. Let's get that might draw. I'm not saying Urban Meyer's going to go to Wisconsin, Nebraska, but that might draw some of these, even these head coaching candidates like Bill O'Brien to go to these programs, knowing that down the line in 3-4 years, they're going to be into this mega conference. And then it's one of the highly recruited, it's one of like the only 30 jobs then that's, up there. I think that might be leading into some of these brash decisions. And that's, Leibold has a good thing going at Kansas. But I think he's seeing that the Big 12 is going to get left behind here. And I think maybe he's going to just ditch and go to Nebraska, Wisconsin. Same thing with Matt Campbell at Iowa State. These coaches that turn these low-level programs, I think they have to just see the potential in this mega conference that they might just go to one of these jobs that opens up.
Yeah, and also when it's going to 12, making it when it's 4 is kind of unrealistic for 90% of the country, maybe more than that. And now it's like anybody that goes, makes the Big Ten Conference Championship and they're 9-3. If you win it, you're in.
Yes.
So it definitely it puts more pressure, considering the fact that if you don't make it in the top 12, it could be considered a failure to some of mid to higher level teams like Wisconsin has been. Whereas like now not making the top 4 it's not even a thought that it's a failure for them.
Oh yeah. And maybe they look at like say USC, who, been in the dumpster fire, and with NIL and the transfer portal and, now the playoff expanding, you can like that turn your fortunes around. Like you can, if you get the right coach and the right guys. And I never answered the question, actually, if I would go to Nebraska or Wisconsin. The answer would be whichever one of these boosters tells me that they're ponying up $10 million a year to pay my team. That's what you need now. If you want me to go get these guys, these 5-star guys, you need to show me the money. Show me the money.
You would think that'd be Nebraska just because of their history.
You would think, but Wisconsin just paid $11 million to fire this guy.
Yeah, good point.
Well,
Nebraska,
they're boosters. That doesn't, these buyouts, they don't come out of the general fund of the athletic department. They come out of the boosters' pockets.
Well, Wisconsin's football program isn't, same thing with their band. There's something with their funding where they actually aren't funded from the school like Ohio State is, because I have some connections to Wisconsin. Their band has to be funded all privately with donors. Like there's nothing that comes from the school. And then with like teams and stuff flying, they have to get private funding for that. And I wonder why he accepted a lower buyout. Maybe it was just kind of good faith thing to kind of get him a job down the line somewhere else. But I mean, if I'm him, I'm like, man, pay me the money. Like you just fired me for winning 3 Big Ten West titles. Give me my $17.5 million. I'm not taking a pay cut. I don't know why he did it. Maybe there's something else in there. But hey, hats off to him. What's that?
Is Paul Chryst your dad? Is that your connection?
No.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they call him Coach Dad. Maybe he's just doing the dadly thing. And yeah, I didn't get the job done. Give me the money. I don't know. I'm sure there's something he could have fought, but maybe there's something in the contract. I mean, with it being such a weird firing, maybe there is something else to it behind the scenes that we don't know about.
Yes, it's always likely.
Yeah, whenever something like this happens, that's always a possibility. But yeah, so real quick though, circling back to the game, because we forgot to do this before we end the podcast. Over, under, and covering. Who you guys got? I got the Buckeyes covering the spread, I think, pretty easily, and I'll take the over because I think they do have a decent passing offense. Michigan State does. It may actually be the best one we've played. It's not great, but it's probably the best one we've played because of who we've played this year. So I'm thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of like 56-14 or something, and that gets us to the over pretty easy.
How much is the over?
64, I believe. By the way, when we did the podcast last week, it was a push because it was 59 on the dot.
Oh, damn it. Really? I thought it was 58.5. Okay. I'm going to say under, and we're going to cover just because I'm always wrong. And with the under, my gut says I'm going to say under.
Yeah, I think we get off to a slow start. I think like 45-12 is the score. We cover, but I don't think we go out. I think it's the under.
All right. Well, that'll do it for this week's preview and review, and also a quick look at the Big Ten and some of the coaching carousel going around. But like us, follow us on Twitter at ViewFromCDEC. Subscribe, comment, let us know that Paul Chryst is indeed Jason's dad, and he's over here stumping for more money because he's pissed off that he gave away his inheritance. We will see you guys next time.
Hey, guys. Whoa, big gulps, huh? All right. Well, see you later.
A rich man's world. I have turned the song of this beautiful land, but that